Get happy.
We
Get
gotta
happy.
turn it up. Well, we're live now, so we better turn it up for the
Hey.
cameras. But yeah, welcome, Rachel, to the live stream.
Whoop,
I've
whoop.
never had you on my channel. I've been on your channel a few times.
I
I don't
have
know.
never been on your channel, have I?
No, I only
Huh.
gained the capability to do this very recently.
Fair.
And I've also spent a lot of time in isolation figuring out how all of it
Mm-hmm.
works. So like StreamYard, OBS, editing, all of that. So it's been a wonderful, productive, tragic moment for me. But how are you doing? And for those of my following that don't really know who you are, do you want to give a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, what you're about?
Sure. I am Rachel, aka ExCultBaby. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about my experiences as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I talk about the Bible. I talk about other social issues. I identify as gender fluid. I go by they, them pronouns. If you don't know me like that, just go by they, them pronouns. I'm really comfortable with any pronouns, but if you don't know me like that, just assume it's they, them. Yeah, I'm a atheist skeptic YouTuber. It's what I do. Don't do a whole lot else. Pretty boring person. No, I'm just kidding. And as for how I'm doing right now, I'm okay, all things considered. My fiance is still working, which is like, oh, good, we have an income, but also like, oh no, we're definitely going to be exposed to the Rona. So, I'm all right, all things considered. I'm not
Yeah,
worried about money, but I am worried about my health, I guess.
it's good, and we did have some conversations off camera about all of that stuff. So I'm glad you're doing really, really well. And I did want to ask briefly, because you and I both come from a Shunning community, and I've had a couple of these conversations. Currently, the ex-Muslim coalition, or whatever you want to call it, just us as a group, right? We're campaigning this whole year around shunning and how shunning affects people. So we've got a couple of hashtags going. They are linked in the video title, so you can use them to share your story. It's shunning is abuse, shunning is torture, and life after shunning. And I've been talking about this to almost everybody that I've brought onto my channel. So there's two things that I want to ask. The first thing is what would you advise to people who are going through, so who are non-religious, maybe closeted and living with their families in isolation right now? What kind of advice or guidance would you give them for this time and what they should be doing?
You know, the thing is, I have been in the situation of being asked to give people in that situation advice already, and every time I'm just like, shit, man, I have no idea what I would be doing
Yeah.
in your shoes. Kind of fucking terrifying. I have ex Jehovah's Witness like chat groups that I've started on different social media platforms, and I have people who have reached out to me personally, and it is rough right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like you're already in a position where you're hiding half of your life and who you are from these people, and now you literally cannot get away from them also. It's a stressful time. It's bad for a lot of people's mental health. But really, if there was any advice I could give, keep up your social contact with people who do understand you,
Mm-hmm.
because that will be like the only thing keeping you sane. When I was kind of in the closet living at home, my only source of sanity was like my boyfriend and my girlfriend, just being able to talk to them and have some connection to the outside world of like, you people are sane, you're not constantly talking to me about the end of the world and the Bible and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could just have real human conversations. Make sure you don't lose those connections right now. Like, I know you're stuck at home, your family may be looking over your shoulder at your phone and your laptop and whatever all the time, but as much as you can, if at all possible, make sure you keep those connections. And if you don't have those connections right now, get them. Get on the subreddits, get in the chat rooms, get on social media, talk to people, real people, people who have been through what you've been through. Hell, talk to us, you know? We're
Yeah.
also bored isolated. We're probably available. Like, if I don't respond, if you DM me and I don't respond right away, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I'm watching Netflix. You know, like,
Yeah, it's the same for me. I'm not very good at juggling like multiple conversations at once because
oh no, I cannot.
I prefer one-to-one interactions, but that doesn't mean that I haven't read what you sent me, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to respond. It just means that I'm getting to it and I'll get to it in my own time.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree, like nobody is telling us to put down our phones now. Nobody is telling us to turn off the
No one's
internet.
saying these millennials and they're being on the phone all the time. It's like, no, this is our fucking lifeline. I don't know how I would be coping with this without the internet, without social media. I have no idea how I would ever be coping with this because, you know, I have been trying to talk to people every single day. I have done live streams. I've done voice chats in my Discord. I've just called people who I haven't called in a while just to have some human connection. And even then, making sure I talk to somebody every single day, it's still taking a toll. I have no idea what I'd be doing without those connections.
Yeah,
so that's the biggest thing.
Completely agree. And I think it's really, really important as well, before I jump into that actually, Critical Cripple has wonderfully put all of your things.
Thank you for shilling for me, Dave.
Dave's great at that. He's also done it for me here. So that's nice.
What would we do with Dave?
I don't know what we would do with that, Dave. He's a wonderful moderator. Thank you, Dave. Dave needs to be like hired.
Yes.
We need to start paying
whatever
him.
you're doing, quit and just be like the mod for all of us YouTubers.
Once your Satanism check comes in and once my Zionist check comes in,
we'll be able to start paying. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the isolation, one of the reasons why I've been making lighter, slightly less serious content, even with these, like we talk about these serious issues and then we just go into less serious things, because I just want it to be a conversation. Because what calms me down the most is just feeling like there's people around when there aren't any people around. So you can just play this while you're doing your chores, doing your work, investing in a hobby. And I think that's one of the important things as well. If you are stuck at home,
are amazing for feeling like you're sitting with a group of people talking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But one of the things that I would advise as well is to get into things that you love. This is definitely an opportunity to invest all your creative energy into creative things, or into learning new things, learn a new language, pick up a new topic. To learn about. I've been just watching YouTube videos about conspiracies, but that's what I'm into. So,
just as long as you don't
good.
become a flat earther or a moon truther or any of that bullshit.
I had a conversation with one of my close friends. He got very angry. He got like triggered because I was reading everybody's birth charts, and I enjoy the zodiac. I think it's funny and fun. But because I'm a psychology student, it was also one of the modules that I learned about was why people believe in things like the zodiac or homeopathy or things like that. So I had asked him to give me his birthday, his time of birth, and where he was born, and he like immediately freaked out. He was like, "Why are you doing this? You know it's all fake." And I was like, "Chill, just doing it for fun."
That doesn't mean that there's no value in exploring that, because there is a reason why people think that it works.
Yeah,
and that in and of itself is interesting, especially from a psychological standpoint.
Yeah, and I did do a live stream with Saf. I don't know if you caught it or not, where we had read out our birth charts, and a lot of the things that I read out was very like on the nose for the kind of person that I am. But there were a lot of things within that as well that could apply to a lot of people. Like, oh, you want a happy life and a stable home. Like, who doesn't want that?
I actually did a video about astrology a long time ago. Like, it was the first video that I did that wasn't an atheist Bible reading video.
Right.
It was so long ago. And it was about astrology, about your sign and stuff like that, and sort of examining how Barnum statements work. I'm sure you know what that is.
We did that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I did this whole experiment where I went through one of these, astrology websites, and I wrote down just a shit ton of traits from each of the signs. And I wrote down which signs each of those applied to, and because a lot of the traits overlapped with a lot of different signs, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
This
and then I had people do, and
this
I
is my
basically had
entire
people,
birth chart.
you know, Jesus Christ. And I had a bunch of different people basically fill out this questionnaire and answer,
Mhm,
like, do you feel like you're this? Yes, yes, yes. And then I would kind of add up the scores.
mhm,
And some people did not, like, only a couple people I think scored high in their actual sign. A lot of people scored high in their sign and a few other signs. Like,
mhm.
and some of them just didn't score well in their sign at all, but scored high in a bunch of other ones. You know, the results were all over the place. So it's like, I can't say definitively after looking at this that, you know, astrology is definitely bullshit, but you can tell that because the results are all over the place, it's at the very least not reliable.
Well, with astrology, there have been studies done on to test participants whether or not they can pick out their astrology in like a group, in
Mhm.
like
One of the
randomly.
things that I did in that test
Yeah.
to try and keep that from happening was that I did not tell any of the participants at the beginning that this had anything to do with astrology. So, in
Okay. Yeah.
part of what I was trying to do was to keep people from even thinking about how these things related to their sign. Only at the
Mhm.
very end did I ask them questions actually relating to what is your actual star sign, blah, blah, blah. But I
Yeah.
didn't do that till the end so that they wouldn't know, at least going into it, that it had anything to do with astrology.
Yeah, going in blind, a lot of people who've participated in the kinds of studies that I'm talking about, they have about a 45% chance of picking their right sign out of the personality traits.
Mhm.
Whereas if you put in front of them all the different personality types that are defined within psychology, been listed by Young and others, people have a much
Mhm.
higher likeliness of being able to pick their personality type. So and like the chance of being able to pick your zodiac sign out of a bunch is less than the chance of a coin toss, of
Mhm.
guessing a coin toss. So it is ultimately it is garbage, but I also think it's really fun and interesting. So I
Mhm.
mean, at some point we should do a video on that as well because I like it. I think it's interesting. Um, a lot of people didn't appreciate it.
Ah,
But I mean, it's
thanks.
whatever. You know, you don't like it,
Yeah,
you don't like it, but I do, so I'm going to put it on my channel. Um,
I think
but
it's
anyway,
interesting to talk about that kind of thing.
for sure, 100%. But I did want to ask you about shunning. Like, dive into this, and then we can go off into whatever tangent
Mhm.
we want to. So, what kinds of shunning have you experienced personally, coming from a Jehovah's Witness background,
Mhm.
and how have you sort of moved on from it? So, what is your life like now following that?
Um, so as a bit of backstory, I left home when I was 19 because I basically came to the conclusion that I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to live it, and my parents were either going to kick me out or I was going to leave myself, so I decided to leave myself. But
Hmm.
it was inevitable, it was inevitable basically that if I had not left myself, they would have kicked me out shortly afterwards, and I didn't want to put them in that position since I figured it was inevitable that I was going to be leaving anyway. I decided to just leave myself. But um very shortly after that I was disfellowshipped, which is the formal uh basically excommunication and shunning that Jehovah's Witnesses use.
Hmm.
So after I was disfellowshipped, my contact with my family and my friends has been extremely limited. And by friends, I should specify the friends that I grew up with who were all Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, I had friends who weren't witnesses, and my relationship with them didn't change.
Hmm.
But I haven't really had contact with almost any of my former friends. There are a very small handful of people who I used to know who have reached out to me and said things along the lines of like, "Listen, I don't really believe in this anymore. I'm like undercover, not really a witness, but I still have to live here with my family and stuff." Or people who have reached out to me and been like, "Listen, I still believe in a lot of things that Jehovah's Witnesses teach, but I think that shunning is wrong. I feel like it's pretty obvious that that's fucked up. So I'm still going to talk to you." And there were even people who have reached out to me and been like, listen, I didn't know you that well. I only knew you in passing. We knew some of the same people. But since you've kind of made a name for yourself online and you do all this advocacy, I've gotten to see more of you. And I want you to know that, yeah, undercover, I don't really believe any of this. So made, I've reconnected with old friends. I've made new friends, and I've found out who some of my true friends were, who were going to stick with me no matter what. But that has only been a handful of people.
Hmm.
For the vast majority of my friends and family that I grew up with, they no longer speak to me at all or in a very limited capacity. My mom just the other day called me to let me know my dad was in the hospital.
Mm.
Um, he had some complications from a previous hospital visit because they had him on a medication that is known to cause liver damage. So when he was at home recovering, he wasn't getting any better. He was getting worse. So he ended up back in the hospital. So my mom called me to tell me that. She still lets me know about important things like that. Um, but other than that, we have very little communication. I told her recently that I had decided to postpone our wedding, me and Nathan's wedding, because of, the fact
Hmm.
that everything is closed and you can't really plan a wedding if you can't, get any vendors and you have no idea when the pandemic is going to be over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our communication has been limited only really to things like that. And even then, part of me wonders why I even bother telling her stuff about the wedding because I know she's not going to come.
She's not gonna come?
Oh, probably not. I If anybody in my family is going to come, it would probably be my mom, but even that is very unlikely, very doubtful.
Mm. That's really painful, though.
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
it's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to thinking about my wedding that I'm currently postponing, but at the
Mhm.
time when I thought that it was actually going to happen sometime soon, um it was really weighing heavy on my mind thinking about like I'm going to go dress shopping and my sister's not going to be there. Like, I'm gonna try on a wedding dress, and my sister is not gonna be with me.
Yeah.
Or like thinking about like I'm gonna walk down the aisle, and my dad is not gonna be the one walking me down the aisle.
Mhm.
Like, that's crazy. And but I've also gotten to a point where I have accepted that that is the most likely thing to happen, and
Mhm.
I now look forward to being able to walk down the aisle alone
That's good. That's
because
good.
I I'm proud of my journey.
Mhm.
I'm proud of the person that I am, and I'm proud of the decisions that I've made. And if they're not, then they don't have to be there. I'm not going to make them.
Yeah.
I would rather have people there who actually support me. So,
Yeah, but I can also understand, like, I'm not really a person who places a lot of value on marriage. I probably would never get married if nobody ever asked. I'm not against it. I just don't think
mhm,
that it's as important as, other people might think it is.
mhm,
But if I did get married and I was throwing a massive party and those things would go across my mind, even though my father is a horrible person. Like,
mhm.
just that I wouldn't even think about inviting him, but it would still be in the back of my mind, like, your dad's not going to be at your wedding. And I know for a fact that none of my family members would come. Even the ones that did want to come, they wouldn't be able to turn up because
That's what I think is the case. Even if there are
yeah.
some members of my family who might want to, they're not going to.
Yeah, it's the shame and the dishonor
Mhm.
that it might bring.
Yeah, with witnesses, there's a lot
Mm.
of policing each other as well
Yeah.
as self-policing. They always say, "Oh, well, this is just a conscience matter and it's between you and Jehovah." But that won't stop. There may not be any official action taken against you, but that's
Mhm.
not going to stop you from having social consequences.
Yeah,
You know?
it's very similar in Muslim communities, especially from what I've found in Asian Muslim communities. Um, yeah, there's. I'm sorry, that's like really awful. I'm sorry that you have to go through that.
It is something that I have learned to accept. I've also, for the most part, stopped sort of hyping up the idea in my mind that I'm going to be able to change them or wake them up from the fact that they're in a cult or anything like that. Because the idea that I have to wake them up is
Mhm.
something that puts pressure on me to change them. And it's like, no, if they want me in their life, then they will have me in their life. And I know that they want me in their life. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they don't miss me. They do.
Mhm.
But they have their priorities and I have mine. And to them, even if they love me and want to support me, in their own minds, they cannot do that without betraying themselves. And I want people to have their integrity. You know, if they feel like that has to be the most important thing to them, I don't want them to betray themselves. I think their
That's
priorities are wrong.
that's very noble. That's a very noble way of looking at it. Because for me, I just constantly think about how unfair everything is.
And it
That's
is. It's
that's where my mind goes.
I
But
go back and forth between like, you know what? I was once in that headspace too. I understand this is important to them and like going back and forth between that and like this is bullshit.
it's definitely a
This is
dichotomy
bullshit.
because I understand it and not understand it at the same time.
Yeah. It's like
And
there
I
was a time in my life where my brain thought that that made sense,
mm,
but I definitely don't think that makes sense now. So it
I
seems
just
crazy.
like people have cut me off for obviously what I believe, and I've cut certain other people off for other reasons. But I could never. I don't think I could ever cut somebody off because of a change of heart.
Mhm.
Um,
I think
it,
the
'cause
problem.
even when I was a Muslim, I had a friend who was having like a struggle with her faith, and I always told her like it doesn't talk to me. And I would always be a little preachy around her. So she eventually stopped talking to me. And we've
Yeah.
gotten back in contact recently. But there was a time where, I had a similar experience. But I don't know. I guess I don't know how I would have treated it if I had a child and my child was going through that.
See, in my opinion, and
Mm,
this is something that has developed more recently due to obviously my background, but I
mm,
am totally comfortable with not having family in the sense of blood relatives. I'm totally
yeah.
comfortable with that at this point. You know, Nathan's family has been acting freaking wacko lately, and I've gotten to the point where I'm like, because at first they welcomed me with open arms,
Mm,
but it's gotten to the point where every time there's something that comes up with Nathan or with me, it's like, see, it's Rachel. That's the problem. Like it's all like I'm the first one to I'm family until something is wrong, and then I'm the one that can leave. Like so to me, being accepted into a family conditionally is like, no, I've had enough of the conditional stuff. I really don't even need a family if that's how it's going to be. Like, if I'm fully comfortable. I'm over conditional love from
mm,
anybody. I don't want it. I don't need it.
yeah.
I, like, I don't care how good the benefits are of having a connection with these people. I am over conditional. I'm over it.
I don't
I,
think I'm completely over it. I think I go back and forth with how we feel about my family. Initially, I did not think it was one of the reasons why I was kind of obsessively getting into relationships because I just wanted that feeling of having a family, and it was really important for me to have that. But I think it's more to do with my background and me having like an active hand in maintaining my family
Mhm.
and doing anything and everything for them. And I don't know, I think I still face a significant amount of guilt for leaving them, even though
Yeah.
there is no way around that, like I
No,
had to
I
do that.
fully understand that.
Mm.
My therapist told me to write some letters to my family, which I
Oh,
sent
I did that too, yeah.
along with my wedding invitations.
Mm,
And in my letter to my brother, I told him that that I did not regret leaving.
mm,
I needed to leave. I was dying inside and I would have died died at some point if I had
mm,
stayed in that situation, but I did regret neglecting him as my younger sibling and not
mm,
seeing the pain he was in and how right up until I left, I had isolated myself from everyone so much. I didn't let anybody in. I didn't let anybody see how much pain I was in
Mhm.
because I wanted people to be distant from me when I finally left. I wanted them to already be distant from me, and I realized as I was leaving that that wasn't right. I hurt my brother big.
You know
He
what? There
he
is no
yeah,
there is no right way of doing
no,
that.
there isn't. But he was so angry with me the day that I moved out, he wouldn't even hug me goodbye. I hugged him and he just looked at me like, "What are you even doing?"
Mhm.
And he was a teenage boy. I mean, I don't hold that against him. I
Yeah.
understand his anger, but it did make me realize like it wasn't just that I was leaving, but it was how I left was hurting people unnecessarily. And if I could go back, I would change the way I had executed that plan. I would have planned it ahead of time. It would have been well known that I was on my way out. I would have found a place. I would have given people some time to accept this. It wouldn't have been a because I literally decided to move out the day that I did it. Like it was literally like that
Right.
morning I got into a fight with my dad and I was just like, that's it. I packed up and later that day I put my stuff in my friend's car and I was gone. Like it was totally a bombshell.
Yeah.
So I regret
I've
the way that I left.
I've had the privilege of leaving many times. And I can tell you for a fact that there is no right way of leaving. I mean, the first time when I left my father's house, um, my siblings were aware that I was going to leave because I told them I've reported him. He's going to be taken away in a few days,
Mhm.
and I'm going to go as well. So they were aware, and you know, I always maybe I wasn't the best carer because I would get frustrated really easily. I definitely have an anger problem, but it's more of an internal one than an external one. Um,
I had a lot of emotional problems too, and I think that that was just because we were in such a bad situation.
Oh, for sure, 100%. But yeah, I remember like being very forthright and informative to my siblings at least because I knew where I was going and I wanted to reassure them that things would be okay or things would be okay eventually. But I think my sister definitely holds a certain level of anger towards me, which is understandable. Because she's 10 years younger than me. She's a kid, you know.
Mhm.
And you know, my mother passed away and then me leaving and she being the oldest girl in the house, it couldn't have been easy for her. So there was that way that I left. The second time that I left, it was a explosive. Just I was arguing back and forth with. I think I was living with one of my aunts and uncles back then, and I just told her I'm leaving and I'm never coming back. And I moved into a different uncle's house.
Mhm.
And with them, when I left, I think I told them I'm leaving right now. And I put everything that I didn't need in a black bin bag and everything I did need into a suitcase. And I took them both out and I just walked off. So I've definitely had a myriad of ways of leaving. And I'm firstly, I'm sick of leaving.
Yeah.
So I'm done with that. And secondly, there is no right way or good way of doing that unless all parties are happy.
Yeah.
Mm,
And that was never going to be the case.
yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Even with that said, I still feel like I could have done better by them, but maybe that's just my own what ifs, all the
It's a hindsight
yeah,
fallacy.
it
It,
really is.
it's a
I'm always
hindsight.
going to feel like I could have done things differently, could have done things better, even if that's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
But I guess as far as the shunning itself goes, I've pretty much accepted it.
Mm,
There was definitely a time like right after I became an atheist. You know, everybody who becomes an atheist has an angry atheist phase. I don't care if you think that you're the logical, reasonable, regular one, you're going to be fucking pissed.
mm-hmm,
Especially if you're in a situation where your parents, your whole family, your past friends are treating you poorly because of their religion. You
mm-hmm.
will be, even if you're not an anti-theist now, you probably were when you first deconverted. Like that's that's just facts.
Mm-hmm.
I was I was like this whole thing is garbage. Why is this happening? Why are they like this? And I tried to talk to my family. To um I tried to reason them out of it a little bit,
Oh,
but
you had hope for them. I had
yeah.
no hope for my family.
Oh, I didn't really have hope. I was just frustrated. I was just like, why don't you see what I see? Why can't
Mm.
you understand that this is so fucked up?
Yeah.
And now I don't feel that way as much about it. I still feel like, why can't you see this? But also, like, I know why they can't see it, and I know that I'm not going to be able to convince them.
Mhm.
I know that anything that I do to try to convince them is going to just drive the wedge further and
Okay.
further between us.
Mhm.
So I'm, yeah, not doing that anymore. It's it took a while for me to come to a point where I could accept that.
Mhm.
But
It's still
I pretty much,
hard.
yeah, but it
Um,
is. It's hard
I
to accept that your family's just not gonna let you come home, just not because they have a personal problem with you, because they want you to come home, but only under certain conditions.
yeah. For under certain circumstances, there's a lot of terms and conditions.
Which is
Um,
weird to me because they often talk about people who are disfellowshipped coming back into the fold in the terms of the prodigal son, which is like a parable that Jesus told. I don't know if you know that one.
yeah, I'm aware of the prodigal son.
Yeah. In the story, the son spends all his money on prostitutes, and then he comes home because he needs a job. And his father doesn't ask him, well, have you repented? He just sees him in the distance, and he runs to him and he hugs him, and he said, we're throwing a feast. My boy is home. That's, to me, there
Mhm.
was no conditions on that. I feel like if that's the story you're going to use, it's pretty clear that in that parable there were no conditions on him returning home and being welcomed home.
Yeah.
The condition was that he was there. He
Yeah.
came back. So, you know,
Yeah, I don't. For a really long time, and I've probably said this so many times by now, but I really do think that there's no emphasis of unconditional love in these kinds of religions. So with Jehovah's Witnesses and within the Islam that I followed, because your love is very conditional to what the person you love believes.
mhm,
Um, and we have parables like that within the Quran, within different stories through the Hadith or the narrations of the teachings of
mhm.
the Prophet, where Noah, I don't know if this story is in the Bible actually, you can correct me if it's not, but Noah sees his son drowning in the flood.
That is
Um,
not in the Bible. That's
well,
interesting.
in the Quran, I think his son refuses to go on the ark and he
Hmm.
climbs up a mountain to escape the flood or whatever, and he's drowning. And Noah's obviously sad because he sees his son drowning, and God like speaks to him and says, "He's not your son because he doesn't believe in me," sort of thing.
Mm.
Um, it's
Ooh.
really shitty.
Yeah,
Same
in
thing
the
with.
Bible, all of his sons get on the ark with him.
Oh, really?
Huh, yeah.
Okay.
See, this is why we need to do a whole video about specifically the
Yeah.
differences in Bible stories between the Quran versions
We
and
need to get drunk,
actual Bible versions.
and
Yeah,
we
that
need
would
to
be
do
fucking
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
But
But there are other parables as well, like Lot and his wife. She
mhm,
turns into a pillar of salt.
mhm,
Well, actually, I'm not sure if. Um, I think in the Quran it just says that she is destroyed with the nation of Lot. It
mhm,
doesn't actually say that she turns into anything. I don't think. I can't remember. And there are other stories like Abraham's father. I don't know if this story is in the Bible either, to be honest. Abraham's father doesn't like that he smashed all the idols, and Abraham walks away from that and treats. He treats his father as if he's not his father because he doesn't believe in Allah or
that
whatever.
might be in the Bible, but I don't remember.
Does in the Bible do they have a story where he's like where the people try to burn him alive and the fire
Who?
doesn't burn him? Abraham.
I don't think so.
We have that story.
That's interesting. There are stories in the Bible where people try to where they try to burn people alive, but God doesn't let them. There, but not with Abraham, I don't think.
Hmm. I'll have to go over my Quran stories, but I'm pretty sure that's Abraham. There's a lot of inconsistencies with the Moses story, the Jesus story as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's definitely something we're
Yeah,
doing
we
at
definitely
some
need
point.
to do a whole
Yeah.
video, maybe a few videos about that.
Mm.
That is
But
interesting.
no, the reason why I was kind of telling those stories is because those parables exist not just within the teachings of the Quran, but it's kind of ingrained into people as well. That if they don't believe in exactly what you believe, then they aren't your family and you shouldn't be treating them as family. And if something
Yeah,
happens to them, you shouldn't be dismayed because
yeah.
they were never your family to begin with.
I think
Um,
that the main difference between these fundamentalist religions that have this sort of like God before everything, even your family kind of mentality,
mhm.
is that they really don't have unconditional love. They can't their God is not a loving God. I
Nope.
mean, they'll say, oh, Allah is full of love, Jehovah is the God of love. They'll say that. But
Mhm.
in practice, it's pretty clear that you cannot express
I
natural
don't
affection.
I remember when I said stuff like that, I didn't know what love actually meant.
Yeah,
Because to me, I don't even think I believed in love. I remember because I was part of a writing community, I wrote a whole thing about how I didn't believe in love and I thought it was just a bunch of chemicals and whatever. And I really didn't experience it until afterward. This was something else that I wanted to talk to you about is surrogate family members. So I've tried to make anyway a lot of surrogate family members and like replacements for people who were parts of my family and who I feel like they are. Like I have a best friend who I call a brother. My best friend Alicia is like my sister, and I'll be very open with them about that, and there'll be a conversation about it. But what is your opinion on that? And do you have surrogate family members of your own?
whew. Um, I've never found a surrogate dad.
Mm.
I've
That's
never found
that's
one.
one of the hardest ones to find.
I but I will say I never had like a very close familial relationship with my dad in the first place.
Mm,
So maybe I don't even know what that looks like. And that's something that's crossed my mind. Like maybe I wouldn't know a surrogate dad if I saw one,
mm.
you know? But I've had a lot of like literally anyone even remotely older than me who has been every any woman who is remotely older than me and has been nice to me automatically was like mom in my
Mom.
head, like
Yeah.
immediate mom,
So
especially if they were actually a mom, because then it was even more just like I'm stealing your mom now and I'm gonna take your mom from this is my mom now.
Dave says to pick Junk Shop as your surrogate father.
I you know Get at me, man. I'll send you fathers. Anybody who wants to be my surrogate dad, just send me your mailing address so I can send you Father's Day cards. All right.
See, like, there have been the way that you feel about surrogate moms, that's how I feel about surrogate dads because I had a very, very close relationship with my father. Not so much with my mother, but I had a very, very close relationship with my father. And that's why like that whole can of worms is so difficult for me because he's a nutter. Um, but I've found myself just and it's not even like I want this as my father. It just becomes I have to impress this person, and not like on a romantic level, on like they have to be proud of me kind of level. Not
Yeah.
going to name anyone, don't want to give them that, but it is people that I've met, some very public people, and that's just a manifestation of my own father issues. But
Yeah.
definitely, there have been people that I look for if I'm uncomfortable, like more so than just looking for my friends. So whenever I do an event, there's always one guy in the crowd who's always there because he's the camera guy. He's always
Mhm.
there. And for a long time, I've called him my soulmate, not in any kind of romantic way,
Mhm.
but I think
Just like
on
you got that connection.
every single level, he just gets me, and I know how to piss him off. He knows how to piss me off, and it's great. Um, but every time I do anything new, so if I'm speaking, I remember the first time I did mushrooms in Amsterdam, I was looking for him. I was like, I need to find Carl. If I don't find Carl, then I'm gonna panic. Just gonna flat out just lose my mind. And I'm always looking for him. So he's definitely something of a familiar. I call him my drug mother or drug Jesus from time to time. 'Cause anytime I do anything new, I have to find him or tell him about it first.
Mhm,
Um, and, as long as he says things are gonna be okay, then everything's gonna be fine.
mhm,
That's just how my brain works, and I remember there were members of my family that I relied on to do that for me because I'm a pretty calm person generally.
mhm.
But now that I'm experiencing all these different things alone in the world with no actual family members, it can be a little tough without those
Mhm,
people just in the background telling you that you did wonderfully and
mhm.
congratulations and well done,
I
you.
I will say I feel that I have adopted a lot of surrogate family through YouTube, through Twitter,
Yeah,
through social
definitely.
media. People that I've met who have I have this one patron who literally like when Nathan and I quit our job working for his mother-in-law at the beginning of the year,
Mhm,
we didn't have any income for a little while. He like he spent hundreds of dollars on us
mhm,
just like uh helping us out. And he's also helped me buy a lot of my YouTube equipment.
mhm.
And it's like I know that you're supporting me as a creator and as a friend, but honestly, like, that's something that dads do. Dads bail out their kids when they're just, you know, don't
Yeah,
when they're down on their luck. And there's people like Julie LaVoice, I is a very maternal figure to me. One of my other patrons and Twitter friends. There's like people that I've never met have become surrogate family to me.
yeah, I found that a lot of strangers that have slowly become friends are just wonderful. They've been more homely and more welcoming to me than any of my family members ever had. And I don't know why I can't sort of dissociate them from being family.
Yeah, it's hard not to. It's hard not to just be like, "Oh, I love this person." You have to be like, "No, you're my mom now." Like, it's hard not to. But at the same time, I think
Mm,
part of my difficulty with that is that you know, my parents aren't, and this is definitely going to be a thing where we differ. My parents aren't bad people. Like
mm,
they weren't complete shitheads all the time or anything like that. They just are in a situation where they are not talking to me, but I want to
yeah,
talk to them and they want to talk to me. And it's like I would love to have that relationship back
mm.
just as it was, even. Like not
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't even want to change it. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't necessarily even want to improve it. I just want my parents to continue to be my parents exactly as they were, even though I guess there was stuff wrong with the way that it was, but at the end of the day, I just miss my mom as my mom, and it's difficult for me to think of other people as my surrogate mom when I know I still have a mom. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of the same for my dad actually, and my mum, because my mother's passed away.
Mhm.
Um, but my mother was never a bad person. She had her flaws definitely, but she was never a bad person. She was always wonderful to everyone, and she was known in our like little community or neighborhood as being like the woman who gives everybody food. She was very, very.
Mhm.
She
My
was a
family's
feeder.
always been really hospitable too. Like
Yeah, but
we're
with my
always
dad.
people that have people over. We always have so we're always baking something for
Mhm.
somebody. We were the people that would bring people soup when they're sick and shit like that.
Yeah, that was definitely my mom. But with my dad, I just in my brain as a kid, I just never thought, and not that I was a bad kid. I was a really good kid. I was always following orders, making sure I was in line, but I just never in my biggest imagination would have thought my dad could hate me or not want to talk to me because I was my dad's only friend. He pushed everyone else away and I was the only one who was around for him. So when it came down to it, it, it really hurt, and I still can't get over it. It's still
Yeah.
in the back of my brain. Like I just can't make sense of it, and it's just complicated and difficult.
Yeah. I totally understand that. There were times when even my dad didn't have a good dad in his life.
Mm,
So he didn't really know how to be like a dad who was also kind of friends with his kids. He
mm.
just didn't know how to do that. It
Oh,
wasn't it
neither
wasn't
did
like
my dad. But
he
I
didn't
think
try or that he was like just nasty and mean all the
mm,
time or anything.
yeah.
He just didn't really know how to have like a family kind of relationship as a father figure.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way about my dad. I'm not entirely sure where our friendship started, but I know that I was my dad's favorite kid.
I
Like
think
there
that I
was,
was my dad's favorite kid too, oddly
yeah,
enough.
just from the way that he treated all of us. I was definitely the kid that he was the most reluctant to punish, and would always talk to, but he was never like a fatherly person to my other siblings. He wasn't really a fatherly person to me either. He was
Mhm.
just a man with a lot of problems who just wanted to be heard all the time. Um,
Yeah. My I don't even really know why I think that I was my dad's favorite because we all got punished and I don't think that he ever he yelled at me as much as he yelled at my other siblings except I will say my sister got punished less, but that's because she was a goody two shoes and not
mm,
because they were going easy on her. She was just better behaved than me and my brother. But
mm,
I I don't really know why I have that impression, but I feel like my I guess I would say my dad picked on me in certain ways. He usually made me help him cook.
mm.
Um
He
it,
involved you more.
and when he was sitting on his own, we had more things in common, like
Mm.
uh all of my family liked Star Trek, but my dad and I were the only ones that liked the original series Star Trek, the old Star Trek. Um
I
And
relate to that.
my dad loved to cook, but he also loved to watch cooking, like, just cooking shows on TV, like, not even, like, the competitive kind, just, like,
Mm,
here's how you
relax.
cook stuff,
Yeah.
and I would watch that with him, like, I feel like my dad and I, of any of my siblings, just generally had the most in common,
Mhm.
like, we could have just hung out casually. We could have like we occasionally like my dad would just randomly be like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I'd be like, nothing." And he's like, "Cool, we're going on a daddy-daughter date." And that would happen like twice a year or something like that. It would just be
Mm,
something random. And the last time that he did that, he took me to see a musical. Um because one of his coworkers' kids was in the school musical. So he was just like, "Well, my coworker invited me to this and
mm.
he decided to take me." And it was just like, okay. Like it was little things like that. Like there was never anything explicit in the way that we were treated that made me think that I was the favorite child, but little things like that just made me think I'm probably his favorite kid,
I
which
think I think what worries me is the reason I think I was my dad's favorite is because I'm the most like him. I also look like him, so I have a lot of resemblance as well. But I am the most like him. Like my love for talking definitely comes from him. Just this interest in everything is also another thing that probably comes from him. But
my
it's
dad and I
worrying.
both really like science and logic and watch documentaries and shit.
Yeah, he would do stuff like that. He banned a lot of television, but he would allow it for documentaries and for, I think, sports. Those were the only two things that we were allowed to watch, and like Islamic TV and things
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
Um,
Did you ever watch that
but
one guy that is always on, like, Twitter and stuff that
Zakir Naik,
huh?
Zakir Naik, the Indian one,
I don't remember what his name is, but he says some wild ass shit.
it depends. There's a lot of them that I
Yeah,
see.
I was about to say, I guess that could be a lot of Islamic
Yeah.
fundamentalist who is saying some wild ass shit.
Yeah.
So
There's so many videos that I could do that I'm just avoiding doing because they're a bit too serious for here and now in the circumstance that
yeah,
we're in. And like having said that, it's probably a pretty serious issue to talk about. But I value this conversation because people aren't talking about this. People aren't out here being uncomfortable and talking about things they don't want to talk about. And if you don't want to talk about this, that's fine as well. we can move on with something else.
Honestly,
But
I'm down to talk about just about anything. I
same.
I like having discussions, even ones that make me uncomfortable are kind of like I feel like I'm exploring something and the fact that it makes me a little bit I mean, having I had so much cognitive dissonance when I was still a believer, but I was also disfellowshipped, so it's like, I still think that I'm a Jehovah's Witness, even though no Jehovah's Witness would think that I'm a Jehovah's Witness.
You've got imposter syndrome.
So, it was like all these things in my head where I'm like, I'm living in the real world and I'm seeing how it works, but it's like, that doesn't match with what I believe though. And it's like, digging into that uncomfortable feeling of like, I don't think that matches what I already think I know.
Mm.
Like, that was so scary, but once I got through that, it's like every time I get that feeling, I'm like, "Yes, we're digging into it. We're getting into something here." So now kind of exploring ideas that make me uncomfortable is like it's
I love
exciting.
it. I love
It's
it. It's
exciting.
uncomfortable, but I think the conclusions I reach are worth it.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah,
definitely worth it.
I enjoy talking about things that I'm like, "Ooh, this is not quite right.
Mhm.
Ooh, this is making my brain hurt. Interesting." You know?
I like that though. When my brain starts hurting, I'm like, I'm onto something. This is this is something that I need to keep digging into.
Exactly,
Because I
exactly.
think a lot of people allow themselves to be sort of blocked off by what they're just uncomfortable with. And I think that that's something that's how we transcend is by not being uncomfortable with anything and just
That's
being
literally
able to.
how I came to understand that Jehovah's Witness theology was not true, was just because I finally allowed myself to explore those questions that when they came up was like, I don't know about that, but somebody probably knows the answer. Like when I was a witness, when questions like that would come up into my mind, it was literally like, I don't know the answer to that, but
Mhm.
somebody probably does. There must be an answer for it because I know this is correct.
For
Like,
sure.
so
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
used to think the
actively
same
explore
thing.
it. I would just be like, somebody knows the answer to this. I won't bother with it
Uh,
right now. I know that this is the truth. It's fine. But like
we have
now when
a
that come up, it's like, oh yeah, I want to get into it.
We have a throwaway saying in Arabic, it's Allahu A'lam. It just means God knows best.
Mhm.
So you don't have to think about it. Like God knows why that is, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I like digging into things. And like even today, I uploaded a video before I started this live stream about
Mhm.
a dream that I had.
Mhm.
Um,
I
and
saw that. I haven't watched it yet.
it's the dumbest dream. Some people who are in the live chat have already seen it, and I wanted to know what people's interpretations were because I kind of want to get into dream interpretation because I don't usually have dreams, but since I've been on medication, and the last time that I was on medication, I always have quite vivid dreams.
Mhm.
So I want to like know what it's about, and I think that anyone's input is you're
Mhm.
welcome to give it. I'm here for it. I want to do some light reading
Mhm.
after this.
I
But
used I used to be kind of into dream interpretation, and I was trying to teach myself how to lucid dream and things like that.
oh, I'm a lucid dreamer.
Ooh,
I'm an extremely lucid dreamer.
nice.
Um But, yeah, one of the reasons why I'm not terrified by any of my nightmares anymore, because I get, like, nightmares, like, night terrors, like, they're not
Mhm.
fun dreams, but one of the reasons why I'm not frightened by them anymore is because I just find them so fascinating, and I'm so impressed
I
by my brain's ability to come up with that.
Do you wanna hear about the nightmare I just remembered that I had last night?
Go for it.
And you can get some interpretations from this, okay? I had a
Uh,
dream that I often have dreams that I'm still living with my family like it's normal, but for
same.
some reason I still know that this isn't I'm living with my family, but I'm definitely also like, "Oh, Jehovah's Witness stuff is not true." So it
Yeah.
wouldn't work in real life. But anyways, in this dream I'm living with my family and I don't know how I figure it out, but
Mhm.
somehow I find out that I have a twin who was murdered as a child,
Oh
who
my
was put in a
god.
gas chamber
Uh-huh. A
because
gas chamber?
yeah, I know. But the reason that they were killed is because my twin did not accept Jehovah's Witness teachings. Just like even as a kid was like, "No, that's not true." Like just never believed it.
So did your
And
parents murder them?
I don't. It's a dream, man.
I don't know.
That stuff is fuzzy. I don't remember. But I remember waking up in the middle of the night crying, and I almost woke up Nathan, but I was like, it's his day off. I'm gonna let him sleep.
It's his day off.
I was like, I'll just go back to
From
sleep.
you? Okay, my interpretation of that would just be you were suffocated by that belief system.
I mean, that's true.
It's very on the nose. My
Yeah, it was
dream,
really on the nose. That's why I
the
thought it would be fun. You'd get a kick out of it.
yeah, I've had dreams. So I did a reading of a series of stories that I wrote a couple of weeks back. I can't remember. I think it's called Alone in the Dark. I did a live stream where I read all of the stories, and they were all based on dreams that I had had the last time I was on antidepressants, and they're all linked to each other. And there's always this theme of like a woman who's lost her child, which is very much in the back of my brain because I raised my siblings. So that one made sense. But the dream I had last night, I was just like, it was just like one thing after another. I had the dream, to put it really concisely, was that it was one of the longest dreams that I've had. It was that the virus wasn't a virus, it was a demon that was
Oh,
sent to thin the herd. Like that's what it was. But it became obsessed with me and wanted to talk to me for some reason. And in the end, we managed to catch it in an ethereal net, and we played Yu-Gi-Oh cards and resolved the situation. That was the dream.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
That's what I mean by like I'm a lucid dreamer, because it started as one thing and then it just became something else as I started making fucking around with it.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah,
It was
the most vivid dreams I've had involved me eating like a lot of sugar right before bed.
mm,
Like I have a very distinct memory of this one time where I was going to bed a little bit early. I don't know why I was so tired, but I was trying to go to bed, and there was a bunch of laughter coming from downstairs, like to the point where it woke me up. So
mhm.
I went downstairs all grumpy, and for some reason my dad and my sister and my brother are laughing their heads off, and they were making brownies, and
Okay.
but this wasn't a dream. This is what actually happened.
Okay.
And I was just like, "Would you guys shut up?" And they're just still laughing, and I never got an explanation for why they were laughing so loud, but I was just like so mad. So waited until they all left, and then I went back downstairs and ate half the brownies because I was so pissed off. I just ate as many as I could. I was just like, I'll show them. I'm gonna eat all their fucking brownies. And then I had the most vivid nightmare I have ever had in my
Oh
life.
my, what was the nightmare?
I was in a hospital
Mhm.
and I was alone. But I knew it was a hospital, even though I wasn't in a hospital room. I was just in like it was like a ritzy, nice hospital. So there was like big old windows and random places to sit throughout. And I was just sitting at a table by myself in a hallway. And I was knitting. And
Knitting?
I knit in real life. I knit.
Okay.
Okay. And these two strange guys came up and they sat nearby me, and I was immediately like, "Oh no, something bad is going to happen." And then they sit down at the table with me and try to talk to me, and I have a knife. At least at the time, I had a knife that I kept in my purse, but I also always had a bunch of other shit in my purse and I could never find what I wanted right away. So even in the dream, I was in my purse looking for the knife and I couldn't find it. So then I just stabbed one of them with my knitting needle,
Oh my god.
which knitting needles are not sharp. They're fairly
No.
blunt, but I was stabbing him hard. And then
Mhm.
I ran. Uh, and then one of them caught up with me and uh dragged me into an elevator and then stabbed me.
Mhm.
And then I woke up and I was like, holy shit. But then I was also like, this was really interesting. So then I
It's
like just
super
got out
interesting.
like I just got out like a Google Doc and I wrote it down and then I kept writing like
Mhm.
to finish the story.
Right. Do you play video games at all?
Some, yeah.
Have you played Fran Bow?
I haven't. I've heard of it.
It sounds that dream just like reminded me of it. It's a pretty good
Yeah, is
game.
it like in a mental hospital or something like that?
Yeah, 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 and there's knitting needles in
Oh, there's the in it? Huh. Okay,
it.
interesting.
So if you wanted to check it out, I would recommend it. Um, but I can't remember what I was gonna say. Damn. But yeah, you know how you were saying that in your dreams, a lot of the time you remember being with your family?
Mhm.
Like you're with your family and everything's fine. That's how I am in my dreams. There's always someone in my family that's around, be that one of my cousins or like my mom, my dad, and they're not like how they were in real life, and none of it makes any sense. It's
Yeah.
just all over the place.
It's like you know what you know, but you're also with your family somehow still.
Yeah, I've had really so there are nightmares and then there's just dreams that I can't tell apart from reality, which is something that I've worried about. It's happened twice to me where I'll be in a dream and I can't tell if I'm in a dream or not. So one of the first times was I had a dream about my mom and she was like feeding me with her hands, which sometimes she would do because it was her like way of apologizing. Is that if we got in a fight and we wanted like to come to an impasse or we wanted to apologize to each other, she would feed me food from her own hands. And she was sitting like on a stool and she was feeding me with her hands and I was talking to her and I asked her because I couldn't tell if it was real or not and I asked her like I thought you died and she goes no 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 like the results from the hospital were wrong there was a big mix up I'm alive and then I remember I ran out of my bed because I believed
Mhm.
that she was alive and it was like very traumatic. I was like
Yeah, Jesus.
and the other time, I think it was about my dad, and he was like yelling at me, and it was very like very vivid, and I couldn't tell if it was real or not. But that one wasn't as traumatic as because it's happened before. But yeah, I've had a lot of weird experiences with dreaming. I trip up in dreams so much, and it wakes me up, and
Trip
I
up
like,
how?
huh?
Trip up how?
Like I'll be walking or running and I'll trip on something and then in actual real life my leg will like jerk and I'll
Mhm.
fall, you know?
Mhm.
It's such an unpleasant feeling and it happens almost every night.
Oof, that is unpleasant. I don't like that at
It's
all.
really unpleasant. It's a feeling of true like fear.
Yeah,
And then you're
yeah.
like, I'm in my bed and everything is fine.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a nice conversation about dreams. I
Dreams
used
are
to see a lot of ocean creatures in my dreams.
hmm. When I was younger, if there was a like I didn't have dreams about monsters or demons or anything like that,
Mm.
but I did like if there was ever a big bad scary thing in my dreams, it was usually an alligator.
An
Is
alligator?
yeah, like in my dreams where there was a scary thing I had to get away from, it was almost always an alligator.
Wow.
Isn't that
What
random?
do you have against alligators?
I don't know. And the thing is, I'm an animal nerd, and
Mm.
in real life, I would be way more scared of crocodiles than alligators. But it was
What's the
always
difference?
specifically an alligator. Like
What's the
it was
difference between
never
an
a crocodile.
alligator and a crocodile?
Oh, crocodiles, well, there's other differences, but for one thing, crocodiles have like longer, skinnier snouts than
Mm.
alligators do. Um,
But why
but
would you be more scared of a crocodile?
I used to be more of an animal nerd than I am now. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Fair enough. I have had dreams about different kinds of animals, but I don't think the villain in my dreams is sometimes I think it's like a foil of myself.
Mm,
So in the last series of dreams that I said I wrote about, the like the villain was this woman who kept trying to create babies out of pieces of people. Um, yeah, it's weird. I don't want to get into it, but I think that that was a foil to me, who I kept thinking that I was a woman who had lost my child,
mhm,
and I was constantly mourning this child. So I think a lot of the time in my nightmares, I'm my own villain, which is I think is a very profound thing.
and
Um,
it's so weird because I know that at the end of the day, dreams really are just a bunch of random pieces of our subconscious sort of jammed together and been like, here you go. But like, at the same time, they often do feel profound, even though it is nonsense. It's also like, yeah, but this is nonsense that came from the inner depths of me, so it
Mm.
still feels meaningful.
Well, that's why I kind of want to get into dream interpretation, just because it might not have any scientific basis or be actual like factual doesn't mean that you can't find meaning in it.
Yeah, like I
Um,
think I like that dream that I just told you about from last night. That feels very profound and very telling about my feelings about my
yeah,
family,
gas
my thoughts
chamber,
about
especially if you weren't watching a bunch of war movies,
yeah.
sounds very.
That's insane. Like I know that I didn't have a twin, and I did, and yeah, like that's kind of crazy. But it does come from my own feelings about my family. Because
Mm,
otherwise, why would I ever have it? Like, why would that the idea that my parents would gas a child because because it's not a believing Jehovah's Witness is
it's
insane.
extremely
It
telling.
reveals my own
Mhm.
subconscious feelings about what I think my parents think, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's
Huh.
like there's some merit to it as far in my opinion, I guess there's some merit to dream interpretation in that sense because
Mm,
there are clearly elements of this of your dreams that I mean pieces of it were like things that came throughout the day. Like I think the reason that gas chambers were in there was because I watched something on Netflix
mm,
and gas chambers were mentioned once for killing animals. It was totally unrelated,
mm.
but it was just like it was something that was mentioned throughout the day, so it just popped up somewhere, you know. So some of it's random nonsense, but some of it's like my own subconscious feelings putting together a story.
Okay, so some of my dreams are quite profound, and other ones I just don't know what they're about.
Mhm.
I remember when I first started this course of antidepressants, I had an extreme, like the first pill, and I was sleeping. When I started sleeping, I had three dreams in one night, and none of them make any sense. And the one that I had last was it was like all of the characters from the Marvel universe,
Mhm.
right? They were all in this like padded, colorful world where everything was bricks. Like, you know, those like cushiony bricks that children play with? Like, it was completely made of that. That's what the whole world was made of. And then out of nowhere, they all get attacked by these bunch of like cyber, like arachnid alien things, and it just made no sense. I mean, it was a phenomenal dream. The whole time I was like, where I'd never want to leave this place, but
This is
also,
wild.
what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about dreams is that if you try to look for something profound in every single one, you're gonna be getting some weird bullshit. Like it's kind of how I feel about holy books is like, yeah, there's gonna be some parts of them that are like, that's a legitimately good lesson to learn, but
Mm,
some of it's just crazy nonsense.
of
And
course,
you
yeah.
need to be able to to
You just gotta
differentiate
pick it.
like
Yeah,
one of these dreams is actually worth interpreting. The one with
take
the
what's
Avengers in the
useful.
Lock City or the one about my mom feeding me from her hands. Like, which of these is worth looking into interpreting?
Yeah, I fully understand that, and I think that, you know, it's also how you're meant to view art. Like, art is something that you find meaning in. It's not necessarily meant to be meaningful or impactful. Sometimes it is meant that way, and other times it's not. But at the end of the day, I think it's how you define that for yourself and how you integrate that. I kind of look at all the mumbo jumbo that exists in the world in the same way, like with horoscopes and birth charts and zodiac stuff. Like, if there's something in there that I do identify within myself that is an awful characteristic,
Mhm.
maybe that's worth changing, you know? It's not completely wasted effort to look into that and be like,
Mhm.
huh, maybe I am a little bit manipulative and maybe I can do less of that.
Mhm.
Um,
I guess to me,
mm.
for me, there's like I used to be super into the Myers Briggs personality types. I
Oh,
used to be
same.
super into it. And at some point, I realized every time I take this Myers Briggs test, my results are a little different.
Yeah, because you change.
Yeah. And because my perception of myself changes from day to day, my
I actually
answers
need to
to
take it
questions
at
will
some
change
point.
from day to day. And
Hmm.
so it's like this is it. really reliable in that sense. Like, yeah, I can learn some things about myself because every time I look at this personality thing, I'm going to get some things out of it that do apply to me and some that don't.
Mm.
But before I came to that realization, I was just trying to fit myself into the mold of the personality type I thought that I had.
What
You
one
know,
did you have last?
I think it was ENTP. And I
I
tried to
yeah.
be as ENTP as I could because I believed that's already what I was. So it's like, I take those, it's like, yeah, if you're a reasonable person, you'll take those things with a grain of salt and you'll just look for what parts of it benefit you. But
Yeah.
there's also going to be people that don't look at it that way and they look at it as an absolute. And for those, and that's going to harm people, I think, because
I
when
I
you
think people need to
try to
stop
shape
looking
yourself,
at I think people need to stop looking at anything as an absolute.
well, yeah,
Nothing is an absolute.
really, that would be great, but
Yeah.
people don't. You know,
No,
I
they
have
don't.
friends who really will go around and ask people, like about their birth charts, and I have friends who have showed me my birth chart and tried to like show me all this stuff, and I'm like,
Okay.
okay, like I've read through it, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, I like food because I'm a Taurus ascending or whatever. I don't think it's because I'm a Taurus ascending. I think it's because I have taste buds.
I think it's because
I think
you're a
it's because
person. Yeah.
I think it's because my dad made me go in the kitchen a lot with him as a kid, and I
Might be
have an
because food is
appreciation for
good.
the art and science of food. I don't think it has to do with when I was born. I don't think that it's anything intrinsic to me.
Oh,
It's like and some of it, of course, is just way off. Some of it's just
mm,
like this doesn't apply to me at all.
mhm.
It's like okay, I I see that some of this does in fact apply to me, but if you take any personality type, you can probably at least find a handful of traits that do
Couple
in
of
fact
things that
apply
will
to you.
apply, yeah.
So it's
100%.
it's like when you look at this as some sort of absolute thing, which a lot of people do, it's like
Mm,
this is if you're trying to look at it as something that really does just know who you are, it's useless. If you look at it as something holding a mirror up to yourself kind of and just
mhm.
looking at the parts of you that you do see in it, then it's like, yeah, okay, this could be useful. But I think that there are ways to do that without using something that people do put so much stock into.
I don't know, I just don't believe in putting absolute faith in anything.
Yeah,
Nothing is sacred anymore. But the last time I did a Myers-Briggs personality test, I must have been a teenager. So I've definitely changed from then, and I think what I got was like INTJ. So I do want to take it again at some point, just
maybe
to.
we should do a video about that kind of stuff. Oh shit, we
Mm,
have so many ideas for videos at this point.
yeah,
Like, we should do a video on that. We should do a video on that.
we need to write these down. I need to
Yeah.
put them up on one of my boards. But yeah, it's just been such a long time, and I'm definitely like I don't think that I identify with being an introvert anymore because I not so much now, but I enjoy the outdoors so much and I enjoy people
Given
so
up
much.
on labels like introvert and extrovert because they've become increasingly meaningless to me. Like
Same.
I used to think, oh, I'm an extrovert for sure because my sister is definitely an introvert and we are polar opposites. I'm hyper and silly and love to talk. And then I was like, oh, but I also like to isolate myself for days at a time. So maybe
Same.
I'm an introvert. And then I just came to the conclusion like, you know what? Sometimes I like to be alone and sometimes I like to be around people. I think that like it's really not I don't
Yeah.
have to be one or the other. I think that if I had to say which one I am, I'm probably an extrovert, but there's nuance to that.
It
I'm not
depends.
an absolute anything, you
I
know?
think for me, constantly going through my own series of existential crises, it really depends on where my brain is at that day, if I'm an introvert or an extrovert.
It's so fluid what you need from other people, how your social needs are because there are definite like I have had friends stay multiple nights at my house and there's some of my friends that like I never want them to leave and like Nathan and I literally like the first month of the year, January, neither of us had a job. So we were with each other all day every single day and we never got sick of each other.
Yeah,
I don't think that we hardly ever argued at all during that time. But there's some people that even if I consider them my friends, I could not spend like
same.
3 days alone with them.
Same. There are some people who are very close friends to me, but I can't be around them for more than like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
we've had lunch, I'm gonna go now.
so
Like,
it depends also, so it's not just my own social needs, but who I'm socializing with that makes a
mhm.
difference. Like, yeah, there are I probably wouldn't want to be if I was at, like a club and I was sober for a long period of time, I would be like, "Ooh, I'm an introvert. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be surrounded by all these people."
No,
But
you're
you
just
put
sober.
alcohol in me and I'd probably not even notice all those people. I probably wouldn't care about those people. It'd
Yeah.
just be like, "Yay, me and my friends are here. We're going to dance." Like it's or like I could go home and be alone all day and it would be fine as long as I had a new video game or something.
Mhm.
But if you take away my electronics and stuff, then yeah, I would feel pretty lonely. It's just like it's so dependent on all those other things. It isn't just like, do you like being around people or not? It's so much more nuanced than that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. I don't know. I think I've met so many people who like boxing themselves. I remember I dated somebody who identified as a jock, and I hadn't heard that word in so long by that point. This was, I think, last year.
Mhm.
Um, he identified himself as a jock, and I was just sitting there, and I was like,
Lots of people like sports, dude. Like,
he doesn't even play a sport. He doesn't watch any sport. So I was like, in what
what?
world are you a jo
You
This is
know,
like a very high school definition of, well, first of all, what you're not, and also you're an adult.
that's interesting. Like I understand why people feel the need to put labels on themselves.
Mhm,
And to some degree, labels are important. Like
mhm,
when I'm talking about something like sexuality or gender, if you're talking sexuality, if you don't have a label for your sexuality, people aren't going to know whether or not you might want to date them.
mhm.
Like if you only like women but you don't use
The
the label
lesbian.
lesbian,
Yeah.
other women who date women aren't going to know that you want to date women. Like
Mhm.
it's to some degree labels are necessary for being able to find people like you and make connections. But at some point, it's like, okay, you're an ENTP. What does that mean for like what does that
You're
mean for me, for
you're a
us?
nerd.
Like, yeah, what does it mean to like and honestly at this point, people have embraced hobbies so much that even the term nerd I think is useless. I
It
used to
really
be like,
is.
I'm a nerd. I like anime and I like science and I like Dungeons and
But, like,
Dragons. Now
everybody
I'm like
likes this
lots of
stuff
people
now.
do.
Yeah.
And I have nerd friends who don't like some of the nerd things I like. So it's just like, nerd is a useless label now.
For
Because
me,
people have embraced the fact that like, hey, I can like things. I can like the things that I like, and that doesn't
yeah.
have to put me in a specific category.
But also, like, I don't identify too much with my hobbies because I kinda like everything. So, even if I meet somebody who's, like, totally obsessed with, I don't know, I once dated a guy who was a butcher.
Mhm,
And he really loved his job as well, and I have no problem with that. Maybe I
mhm,
should, I don't know, but he really enjoyed his work, and we were on this date, and he was talking about, different types of cows and what they or, like, that different types taste
mhm.
like different things, which was beyond me. Like, at that point, I was a vegetarian, so it
God, I
it
would
didn't
find
matter
that
to me.
conversation so fascinating.
But it's still such a fascinating conversation, and when I told my friend that, she was like, "How did you sit through like, you guys had nothing in common." And he was a bad choice, but for other reasons.
Yeah,
Um, but I sat there and I was like, "I don't think I care what people are into. Like, as long as they're not telling me that I have to be into something and I can still do what I wanna do, I
yeah.
don't
Like,
I don't
there's
really care."
I think that people are way more interesting with hobbies that I don't have.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, totally.
Nathan's into music, and he's always telling me about music, and I don't understand what he's talking about half the time, but I'm still like pleased to listen.
Yeah.
And I will give him the rundown about some random stuff like birds or like makeup and things like that, and he'll pleasantly sit and listen even if he's not particularly interested. Like a little while ago we were driving and I was like, "Holy shit, there's a bald eagle right there." He was like, "What? No way." And I was like, "Yeah, and he was like, I didn't think the bald eagles lived around here." And I was like, "No, they're very rare, but they
Mhm.
do live in this area." They live throughout Ohio, blah blah blah. And I went into like bird nerd stuff, and
Uh-huh.
it's like I don't know. Like I can't imagine
That's how I
being
am with ocean creatures.
someone who doesn't have hobbies. Like I want you to be able to tell me about something I don't know about, even if it's not something I particularly care about. Your passion for it will make me interested.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I have definitely met people who have no hobbies. I once dated a guy. The only thing that he did was work, go to the pub, watch sports, and sleep.
Whew, that's rough. Yeah,
It's just
I
it is for sure rough, but also I'm the weirdest person I know. Like, surely I can accept whatever the hell
right,
you're doing, you
right.
know? Like, if
Like
you can get on board with all of this, then,
yeah.
you're fine.
Then what could you possibly be doing that I'm not going to be able to be like, cool?
Sure.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way. Like
Mhm.
there's lots of things that I like that are I don't know, odd. Like I grew up doing origami all the time, and
So
that
did
was a
I.
thing that I always talked about and always did. And my family has always encouraged my hobbies.
Mm.
Like there has never not been a thing that I was like, I'm interested in. And then a week later, everyone's like, I bought you this book about birds, and I bought you this origami book, and I got you like there's never been a time when my hobbies were like encouraged as a kid. So the idea that I meet someone who's just like not into anything really
Mhm.
is like weird. Because even I've even met people that have hobbies that I have just zero interest in, like cars. I've
Mm.
never had any interest in cars, but it's sexy to hear a guy talk on and on about cars if he
Something
knows.
that they're passionate about.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like even if I have no idea what they're talking about, it's like, please tell me about the thing that you like, even if
Mhm.
I'm not going to get it. And the thing that's even more attractive to me than somebody telling me all about their hobbies is when I tell somebody about my hobbies and later they can repeat back at least some of that information. Like they're like, "Oh, isn't that the thing that you said?" And I'm like, "Yes, that is the thing that I said."
Yeah, I've made the mistake. I've made the mistake of thinking that I'm more fascinating than I
Oh, that's
am.
not
People are just but
oh, you're
sometimes the way I tell it as well. Um, is the way that you are about birds, I'm super obsessed with any kind of ocean or aquatic creature, because that's just where my animal knowledge thrives is in the ocean. For whatever reason, I'm terrified of the ocean, but I find it
oh, me
fascinating
too.
because there's so much
Terrified.
variety. But yeah, sometimes I will tell it in a really sad way, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to remember that. I don't want to remember that. Why would you tell me that?" And other times it will just be funny. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a weird person that sort of hobby jumps a lot. So for me to not, have an interest in whatever somebody's talking to me about is
Mhm.
beyond me. I'm always interested in what people have to say.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. As
It's
long as
super
they're willing to listen back, you know?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's a given.
Yeah, like, as
No
long
one
as it's
likes
not just
someone
them going, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. That's awesome. Uh-huh. Wow.
met
Mhm.
people like
Mhm."
that as well.
Yeah.
Those are the worst kinds of people.
I am
Um,
totally okay with listening to someone if it's the kind of thing where it's like they've just had a really rough fucking time
mm.
and they just need to vent.
Oh, I'm
Like,
always
you know
down
what?
for a
That's
rant.
fine. That's fine. If you literally just need to sit here and whine for an hour, I will listen. But that can't be our whole relationship. Like,
No.
if you need to whine every now and then, fine, but that cannot be our whole relationship is me listening to you whine. Cannot work.
There was this girl that I dated. I know this has become something else, but there was this girl that I dated last year, I think around winter time. And she, every time we met up, she wanted me to psychoanalyze her.
That's interesting.
It wasn't fun. I was like, "I don't
Yeah,
wanna sit here and
I bet.
judge the hell out of you. I don't like
No,
this." But
that's
she would, like, tell me a story of something she did or something that happened to her, and she would always tell me, "So what do you think about that?" And I would just be like
Like, what do you mean? And what,
I
like, as
thought
a
you
person or
I
as a
didn't
psych student?
realize
Like, what do you mean?
I didn't realize that I was meant to hand in a paper for this, you
Yeah,
know?
Jesus.
Like, what
That
does that say about me? And I'm just
I don't know. Shit. Do your own self-analysis. Don't ask
like,
me.
if you want a therapist, you can pay me, like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do this for free.
You know what's really funny? My first boyfriend that I had when I was 15 is now a psych student,
Mm,
which is bizarre to me because we didn't break up on bad terms or anything like that. He was oh it's just that I went into our relationship as a 15-year-old like, yeah, this isn't
mm,
going to last. This is like a 15-year-old relationship. We're high schoolers. This is going to be fun for right now. And he
mhm,
was just like, we're gonna get married someday. And I was like, oh, we have very different ideas of where this is going.
mm,
But that aside, he's a psych student now, which is just insane to me because he was like the most shallow person that I knew at the time. Like
mm.
he could not talk about heavy subjects for any length of time. Which was one of the reasons that in my head it was like this isn't gonna be like a
It's not
long-term
gonna
thing.
last,
Be a
yeah.
fun child relationship. Like, ooh, we kiss,
Puppy love, yeah.
but
We
it
hold
was not
hands.
like yeah, but it was, I didn't think that it was ever gonna be lasting because, like, whenever I had to talk about problems, he was just like, "That's rough." And it wasn't like he didn't give a shit, he just didn't know how
He didn't have the maturity to know how to deal with
yeah,
that.
he could not communicate that, and years later, we sort of started chit-chatting again because at that point I was not a Jehovah's Witness, so I could reconnect with people that I used to be friends with, and I
Mm.
kinda gave him the rundown of my story, and he admitted to me, he was like, I've never really been good at handling, like, heavy topics, and what you have gone through is really heavy, but I'm glad you came out of it the other side
And
good." And
he's
I'm
a
like,
psych major?
"Yeah." I know. It's like, it blows my mind. I'm like, how do you but
How do you
it's also, like,
function?
funny because it's like, this is the growth of people that you haven't seen in years. Is
Mm,
like because he still is the same person. He still isn't somebody who really deals with heavy stuff very well, especially other people's heavy stuff. He's like and again, it's not like he doesn't care.
maybe it was
Just
cathartic for
doesn't really
him.
yeah.
Maybe it was cathartic for him to delve into some heavy issues and do
Yeah. Oop, you froze up.
I don't
Yeah.
oh, sorry. No, I was
Nope,
just saying maybe
I
it was
caught
cathartic for him.
yeah.
Okay.
I have a feeling it might have been because now the funny thing was when he said that, when he admitted, like, oh,
Mm,
yeah, I've never been good with dealing with heavy stuff, I looked back and realized that he never talked about his problems to me. Nothing more than, like, like
oh,
what happened
no.
at work that day or anything like that. Like,
Mm,
he either never acknowledged that he had real big problems in his life or he just didn't have them. Like he either just had like a perfectly fine life with no major problems or he just didn't talk about it. And it was just funny to think like this person is a psych major. Like the least introspective
oh,
uh like thinking deeply about things person that I have known in my entire life. Not someone who doesn't give a shit, but just someone who cannot process heavy stuff is
yeah.
going
That's
into like that is just so like
wild.
interesting to me. Yeah, it is wild. Like who'd have thunk it? But
Mm.
it, people change in the most interesting ways.
That's what's great about them, though. That's
Mhm.
what I love seeing, is the change in people. Some
Mhm.
people never change, and that bothers me. Like, how are
Yeah.
you still the same person from 5 years ago?
And then some people change in ways you'd never expect. Like
Mhm.
I've
Me.
reconnected with a lot of my exes because most of us didn't like most of the time my relationships didn't break off on bad terms. We broke it off because my parents found out we were dating and made me break up with them. Like
Oh.
so it was always like there was pretty much always a chance that we could become friends later in life.
Mm.
Um one of my exes is still pretty much exactly the same. He still works at the same place he used to, doing the same kind of stuff. And it's mostly fine. I have the one ex who went from like totally shallow to like wants to be a psych Major, whatever. And then I have another one who like is going on a similar but parallel journey to mine, kind of, because I was a Jehovah's Witness. He was a Seventh Day Adventist. And the funny thing is that those two religions actually have, like, if you draw the history back, they have a similar cult, basically.
Aren't they offshoots from the same thing?
Yeah, they started from the same thing, and then they just branched off in two different
Yeah.
directions later on. And he was really religious, and I was really religious, but he was really nice, and I was really nice, so we liked each other, and blah blah blah, and we dated secretly, blah blah blah. And now he's going through his rebellious phase, and it is so different from mine. But it's like we're both kind of going through. We kind of went through that sort of getting out of that particular mindset, but so differently. And it's bizarre. Like when we first met up to like have a chat, I found out that for some reason he had talked to one of my ex-boyfriends before meeting with me because he was suspicious about my motivations for wanting to talk to him after all these years. And he asked me, and I told him, it was like, it was literally just because, like, we used to be friends and I want to catch up. I was forcibly removed from your life and I liked being friends with you, so I, want to be friends again if that's cool. But of course he talks to my ex-boyfriend who was my friend at the time, so he's the only person he knows, and he's like, "Oh, Rachel's just gonna try to like have sex with you or something and leave Nathan, and she's a sociopath and blah blah blah." And I was like, I don't know why you had to ask somebody else what my motivations were. Like that logic of just like I told you the reason I wanted to talk to you. I don't know why that was not.
I don't know. I think he's just going through his angry phase.
Yeah, he really was. I don't understand people who are just generally
Rachel's a
suspicious.
sociopath.
Well, no, that was one of my other exes who decided that I was just he's the only ex that I'm like, no, we're not friends. We're not going to talk anymore. Because we actually did break up on bad terms.
Okay.
That's a whole other can of worms. But the point is just like the people that I have reconnected with from my past, some of them are exactly the fucking same, and some of them are completely fucking different, and it's just wild. And I wonder so much if my old Jehovah's Witness friends, if they met me again and decided like not to shun me, like what would they think of me? Because I feel like as a person, I'm still basically the same. It's just a lot of other stuff that's changed. Like the person that I am isn't really different.
As a person, I've definitely changed. I never thought I would be here. I have, I think it was late last year, it must have been in December or November, I met a school friend. This is after like 7 years maybe of not having any contact with each other. And so much has gone on in our lives and so many things have changed. She just sort of couldn't believe how much has changed. And I'm still in a little bit of shock about how much I've changed and how many things have changed for me because I really thought I would never be here. I never, the only life that I could envision as a young woman was being married and having kids. That was my entire spectrum of what I thought my life could be. And I never saw it any other way.
Yeah. I mean the things that I want out of life are a bit different. And there are things about my life that have changed drastically, but I think that at my core, I have the same values. I just wasn't allowed to express those values. It's like I didn't change. It's just that I was suppressed before and now I'm not. That's kind of how I feel about it. Is like I'm pretty much the same person, but the person that I have always been was very much suppressed as a Jehovah's Witness.
I think so. I think it's similar for me. I think one of the things that my friend, when she met me, she highlighted was, I'm so glad that you've let your artistic side flourish because I always knew it was there and I could always see it in like the different work that we did together at school, but you would just never let it out because it was never allowed. And I'm really, really happy to see that it's come out. Like you're drawing now, you're doing all your YouTube stuff, you're dyeing your hair. Like I'm really, really glad that that side of you has flourished. And so I think I would agree with that, definitely. I think there was a side of me that was definitely suppressed or I like denied existed. but
But
after it's always there. But yeah, we've been going on for an hour and a half, and honestly, like you're one of those people I could talk to forever.
yeah.
Only a few people are like that in my life where I could talk forever to certain people. But thank you for coming on. If you have any like
No problem.
closing statements, please do leave them in.
My
And
closing statement is everybody wash your hands and don't leave your house unless you have to, because I have plans in June, and if we're still on lockdown, I'll be mad.
oh, but yeah, feel free to shill your stuff as well. I'll leave a little card at the beginning of this video so that people can look you up.
Sure, yeah. ExCultBaby, YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram are all the same. It's just ExCultBaby. Find
Isn't it
me, follow
Rachel
me.
Casey on Instagram?
No, I
Is
think
it
I
Cool Baby?
I think I changed it. I think I just wanted to consolidate it all. Like people can find
Yeah.
me, so I just changed my username. So like it's all ExCultBaby. If you want to find me, it's ExCultBaby on any given platform. If it's not ExCultBaby, then I'm not there, except
Mm,
for like Facebook probably. But like
mm.
yeah, other than that, that's how you can find me if you want to find me.
All right.
Atheist, skeptic, ex-Jehovah's Witness, and overall glamorous person.
Yes, indeed. Please do go and follow her, love her content, and you're probably seeing a lot of us content more because apparently we have a lot of video ideas.
We,
Um,
we've been meaning to do stuff. We just haven't done it because we're sleeping.
yeah, mood. Um, but if you liked the conversation, please do feel free to like, share, subscribe. All of my social media stuff is linked in the description below. And knowing Dave, he's probably going to put some stuff in the chat for you to follow if you want to.
Of course.
Thank you for coming out and joining us and for being a part of the conversation. I'm having Nirvadia on tomorrow,
Ooh,
so
every
I'm
unholy bitch. You got them all.
yeah, I got the trifecta. So I'm really glad that I got that going. But she'll be here, I think, UK time 10 a.m., Australia time 10 p.m.
Mm.
No, I think she said 8. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But she'll be here, and I hope you guys are ready for that because she's probably going to teach me some science,
You're
and
not
I'm ready
ready.
for
You're not ready for it.
that.
You couldn't.
You could never be ready for Nirvana.
No.
But anyway, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, YouTube.